Hello, everyone. Welcome to Qobuz Live Thursday. I'm David Solomon, and thank you for joining us. We've got a fun show, like they all are. We have been having some terrific guests on and some terrific companies, and today's no exception. Today we've got Macintosh on. It was my first high-end amplifier way back when I think I was 19 years old when I got my first Macintosh. It was a 2100, and I was like so proud because I was definitely the coolest kid on the block with one of these things. So yeah, we've got some guys on from Macintosh. We've got Ken, and we've also got Josh from the world of Macintosh.
Hey,
Ken
Dave.
is the fellow that I deemed historian of Macintosh. But also Ken is the trainer, and he goes all around the world and trains people on Macintosh, and really talks about him. He's, I guess, is about as much of an ambassador as anything else. He's got some fascinating stories. We've been on the phone now for I guess a couple of hours, and we've just been having a great time. Josh Dellinger is turned into a really good friend like the minute that we met, which was about 3 years, three, two and a half,
Something
3 years
like
ago.
that. Yeah, it's
Sounds that,
crazy.
yeah. So I'm trying to even think where we met.
It was
It was
here at the
no,
townhouse.
no,
Yeah,
no.
it was
Was it here?
100%.
It
Yeah,
was there, wasn't it?
yeah.
Because I think I gave you a call and said, "Hey, this is Dave from Cobuz. Could I come by and see the place?" That is how
You
we met.
cold called me, bro. You
Right,
cold
that is
called me. Yeah,
exactly what happened. So I get to the
yeah.
world of Macintosh, and I'm going, "What? There's no world of Macintosh. It looks like, it just looks like some street, some undefined street in New
Yeah,
York." And finally,
exactly.
going, "Oh no, it's the door with all the crazy painting. We don't want people to know that we're here." And I
Yeah.
go, "You got to be
It
kidding
was
me!"
it was like a happy accident that it became that way. That it's like very indescript. You know.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I wanted to at least introduce you to the guys and let you know who you're going to be talking to. And I'm
Mhm.
going to be bringing those guys on in just a second. Ken and Josh, thank you so much for being here. And
Yeah. Thanks.
I'm going to go through a quick little boiler, and then we're going to see you guys in just a few minutes. Okay.
Cool.
Okay, folks. If you're just tuning in, you don't know anything about Qobuz, we are the music lovers. That's one of our taglines, and it's absolutely true. We've got over 60 million tracks and at least 1644, but a whole bunch of them are in high res up to 24 192. We've probably got the most high res of any other service, and we're super proud of it. We've been doing this for a long time. We're from France and just hit the United States about a year and a half ago. We've finally gotten up to 60 million tracks. We started out at about 40 million, and the collection has taken quite a leap since then. And we're on this just great ascension to just so much wonderful music. One of the really cool things about Qobuz is that we're getting, oh gosh, just literally thousands of songs every month that are brand new, thousands of albums every month that are brand new. And Dan, our my managing director of Qobuz here, we were talking about it, and we're going, it's like it started out about a year and a half ago that we're getting about 60%, maybe 50, 60% high res. Then it was like 60, 70. Now it's like 70 to 90%. Almost everything is coming high res, and if you think you can't hear the difference, it's just not true. You can't hear the difference because really, you have to think about this in a little more global light, in that it's not just for us. This is really for the recording engineers, and they're doing such a much better job being able to now record in 24-bit as opposed to 16-bit. That the recordings are just getting better. If you've been listening to music over the last 5 years, you should have noticed an absolute huge advancement in recordings and the way things are being recorded. They're just being recorded better these days. Finally, the recording engineers and whatnot have gotten good enough at recording digitally that digital is finally coming into its own. So really, really proud of that connection. Our Studio Premiere, which does give you everything that I just talked about, is $15 per month. If you pay annually, it's only $12.50 per month. And just to me, the idea that we could have this much music at our fingertips for this low of a price, which is like less than what we used to pay for a CD, is astonishing to me, and I feel super privileged every time I open up Qobuz. We do have a family plan. It services up to about to 6 people in your family with one subscription for $25 per month. So if you've got a family that's not necessarily into high resolution audio, it's probably because they don't know they are. They've never really been exposed to it. If you turn your family on to high resolution audio, check back with them in about 6 months and see what they say. There's a real good chance that to begin with, they'll say, "Oh, I didn't hear much difference." Which, being put on the spot, I could see how that would happen because these are subtle differences. However, high resolution isn't about one thing that you hear this night and day difference. There's literally millions and millions of tiny details that make up what high resolution is, and combined, they really do make quite a difference, especially if you've got a recording engineer, mastering engineer, or someone who's remastering an album. If they've got, great skills, that makes all the difference in the world. You'll always get something that's recorded in 2496 or 24192 that's just not a great recording. But really, for the most part these days, um, the recordings really, really are so much better in 24-bit. Um, we've also got a Sublime membership, which, if you are the kind of person that likes to buy music, for about $250 a year, you can hop into this program, which basically gives you the right to buy music, high resolution music, super, super discounted. Just as an example, this is Crime of the Century. This is a super popular high resolution recording. We sell it in 24,192. We sell it just to regular people. Anyone can buy this recording for $21. But if you're, which is still a really good price, even if you're not a Sublime member. But if you're a Sublime member, you can buy the same recording for $10.49. So if if you're on the math side at all, you can figure out pretty quickly that you can, if you're the kind of person that buys 3 or 5, 4 or 5 or 10 downloads per month, it ends up just totally paying for itself. Next thing that I'll tell you about is our one of my favorite sections, which is our Hi-Fi Partners playlist. Macintosh just put theirs up today, so you'll have to take a listen to it. I didn't even get a chance to. I usually try to listen to these recordings before the show, just to say I did. I wanted to see what people have got, but I didn't get a chance to listen to this one. As soon as we finish, I'm gonna pull up our Macintosh playlist. You can either search that just by putting in Macintosh, or you can go under Qobuz playlists and look under Hi-Fi Partners, and you'll see all of the different Hi-Fi partners. This is Macintosh's playlist. Thank you, Neetha. I didn't happen to thank Neetha. She's producing for us today, and absolutely my favorite producer. No offense to anyone else that produces. Thanks for pulling this up, Neetha. And with that, I'm going to bring back on our friend Ken and Josh. Hey guys.
Hey.
Hello.
So wow, things are really cooking at Macintosh, huh?
Production can't keep up with demand. It's just crazy. And we've introduced so many new models in the last couple of months. Our 901 amp, which is the most groundbreaking amp of the last 50 years. We came out with it, then COVID, and now we can't build them fast enough.
That's amazing. That is one of the most interesting. We're going to talk about that in a little bit, but that's one of the most interesting amplifier designs maybe I've ever seen. And it's something that I've actually thought about. 100 times. Why doesn't somebody come out with an amplifier like that?
Well, I'll explain why it hasn't been done, because
That sounds
everyone's tried to do it, but there's pitfalls, and we came up with this solution, the secret sauce.
We'll definitely get into that. In fact, I think Josh, I think you guys have got one of those hooked up at the World of McIntosh, don't you?
Yeah, I literally just finished connecting it yesterday, so I've just been playing music through it nonstop.
Cool. Yeah, I cannot wait. I've been dying to get to New York, but obviously nobody's been able to travel. But I'll tell you, the second that I can get up there, I will be at the World of McIntosh again.
I know, it's been a while.
Before we get going too much, I'd like everyone to just to know you a little bit and to know kind of what you do. I gave a real light introduction to you, but Ken, I know you're mostly a trainer. I've dubbed you historian after meeting you and talking with you.
That's a euphemism for old, right?
No, not at all. It's a high compliment to someone who does a whole lot about this iconic company that so many others would like to know about. In fact, I had a couple of people write me once they found out we were doing this live stream, and going, "Gosh, I hope you guys go into the history of Macintosh a little bit," which I intend to do.
Yeah.
So Ken, what do you do? What do you do daily, and what's your basic position with Macintosh?
Well, we want, when a consumer goes into a store or calls an online reseller, we really want them to get proper advice, and we don't want answers to be guesses. So I create training videos for our dealers. When someone says, "What is Power Guard?" or "What features does this model have?" So I create videos explaining all about the new products, giving tours of it, showing what every jack on the back does, so that everyone who presents this to a consumer can present accurate information. And I sold Macintosh starting in 1972.
Wow.
So I sold a lot of Macintosh. So I know what the questions consumers come up with. So we reoriented our sales training to be really customer centric, answering the questions that they ask. Why should I buy this model instead of that model? So that's what I do at this point.
Yeah, I think a lot of your questions probably circle around, how can I get one of those beautiful amplifiers with the beautiful VU meters on them?
Everyone wants meters.
It's
like a meter on a phono cartridge, we would, but
it's the most distinctive look.
Yeah, we tried it, but it tracks a little too heavy, so
I think everybody loves the look of Macintosh, and you guys do such a great job.
Yeah, we developed that look in 1969. The 2505 was the first amp with the glass panel and the meters, and that just, everyone went wild when we did that, and we never looked back.
I didn't tell you guys this. I did have a Macintosh amplifier as my first amplifier, but I didn't tell you where I really got turned on to it. When I was 16, I had a bunch of buddies that were in a rock and roll band, and one day their father called us up and said, you guys are playing crap. It was just, heavy rock and roll typically. You don't really know what music sounds like. Please come up here and allow me to enlighten you. And we walk in, and he's got, I don't remember the Macintosh amplifier and preamplifier it was, but you never forget that logo, right?
Right.
And he had Mac gear, and then he had a pair of Bozak speakers.
Oh, those were great.
Right. And so we sat down, and he played classical music for us. At 16 years old, I got to tell you, classical was not in my repertoire. It didn't really. However, he played it, and I'm going, wow, that sounds really good for old people music. If I ever start listening to stuff like that, I'd really like to have. But I wanted that system. I'm going, man, I wonder what Pink Floyd would sound like.
Yeah.
If
the sound is so good that it's just a revelation, it doesn't make a difference if you don't like the music. It really doesn't. It's just, if the sound has to be that exceptional.
Okay, well, I'm going to go ahead and go with that. Josh, we got to go to you next. And Josh has got, I've told him this before. He has got, I think, maybe the coolest job in audio. Josh does work at the World of Sound, but I call him the curator of the World of Sound. He's more like one of these guys that doesn't just go in and clock in and then clock out. In fact, Josh, do you ever clock out?
No, I don't think so.
He makes the experience so much fun. Do you remember what I said to you? I guess probably that wasn't very unique what I said to you after the tour. Like I want to live here.
Oh yeah. Well, you said I don't want to leave. I have other meetings I have to go to. I was like, blow them off.
Like, and I did. We had a great time.
At least one off. Yeah, at least one. But the other one you had to go to.
So, yeah. Josh, you work at the World of McIntosh. You really are the guy that gives tours and helps people. They don't sell any gear there, so it's as much of a branding operation as anything. But to me, I've never seen a better job in the United States, at any rate, with any company that brands like you guys do, and then puts as much attention to detail and such a large investment into a place in the middle of New York City. What a cool place.
Right. Yeah, I mean, and it's interesting because, for us being the Macintosh group, we're composed of so many brands underneath the umbrella itself, right? So therefore we get to show it's more of a brand experience. So like you said, and I'm happy that you brought that up, that we don't sell any product. It's more about providing the experience, inspiring people to kind of show them what's possible with our entire family of brands and how they can work together, how they can complement the system that you already have, how you can upgrade. And it's a great environment for people to just be able to hang out, listen to music, not feel the pressure. And then we work directly hand in hand. So if somebody really does want to move forward and acquire something for their home, then we work directly with the dealer. So I kind of get to act as this concierge in the sense I get to connect all those dots. You build a great relationship, connecting with the right people, and you get to see it through the end of them actually getting the system. And then following up with me just saying, like, this has completely, changed my life. And this is fantastic. It's exactly what I wanted. So it's really cool because, like you said, the building's unique. And if I can make it work, Dave, I would love to, at some point during this call, I can kind of do a little walkthrough of the space.
We're doing that. All right, cool. I couldn't get away from that because I had been there and I'm going, this is such a fascinating place. Yeah. I don't think it's ever been done. So I'd ask Josh, it's like, Ken and I are going to talk because Ken and I have got a lot to talk about. We're going to be old friends by the time this is over with because we're going to do some Macintosh history, just kind of go over some stuff that you guys are doing. In fact, Ken, I think you've got something that you're going to be giving away today, don't you?
Yes. So we have a Macintosh history book for the love of music. And it's a big book. It's about as big as me. And it's full of, there's Ron Evans, who was head of engineering for a long time. It's got pictures of lots of, not used to doing this. I got to go backwards. Dave O'Brien at a test clinic. It shows the insides of old amps from the 60s.
That's awesome. Cool.
The warehouse. So this is the history of Macintosh from A to Z. It's the perfect book for anyone who's a Macintosh fanatic. It retails for $150. We sell them all the time. At shows, people always want me to autograph it because they think I'm Ken Kessler, who wrote the book. Well, no, I'm Ken Zelin. So I always just sign it, welcome to the Mac family, Ken.
Which is good enough.
Yep. Someday they'll take it to the Antiques Roadshow and find out it's worth nothing because I signed it. So we have one of these books to give away.
Fantastic. That's going to be, so here's how you're going to win the book. Make sure that you at least comment or ask a question or something. And then Neetha is going to put everyone in her little magic spinner and pick out a winner at that point.
So they have to ask a question or make a comment
I think so.
to get into the queue.
Yeah, otherwise we don't even know that they're there other than with us going, how you doing? Yeah, that's what we're gonna end up doing. So yeah, everybody put your questions in or comments or just say hi to us. We'll be glad to throw you in at that point. So I think what we're gonna do now, if it's okay with you guys, is Josh, we're gonna say goodbye to you for a little while.
Sure.
And Ken and I are gonna talk, but we'll be bringing you back on fairly soon. Ken and I are going to talk for probably, I don't know, just a few minutes, and then if Sujan is ready, we may go ahead and bring her on, let her do the music desk stuff, and then we'll be back on. But you'll know when we bring you back on. Josh, take care, buddy, and we'll see you in a little while.
Thanks. Sounds good.
Ken.
Yes.
So now that Josh is gone, let's talk about him.
Right. Let's talk about his hair.
What a great setup. What a great head of hair the guy's got. He's really a very neat person. And I'm looking very much forward to the tour that we'll be doing in a few minutes. There's nothing like being there, but I guess this will be the second best thing. But Ken, you've been with the company now. I know you said you've been selling Macintosh since 1972, which was way, way early. I would never have believed it. When you told me that, I'm thinking, what was he, like 3 when he started selling this stuff?
I was 15. I was in high school, and I hung around a store in New Jersey, Purdue Radio. I hung around so much that to keep me out of the salespeople's way, they put me to work in the service department occasionally doing minor repairs. And then when I got my license, I did a few deliveries and things. So it was a little income when I was in high school.
It's I didn't work at a hi-fi shop in high school. I was in bands, but the second I got out of high school, that was my very first job. And honestly, it was just to get a good deal on a hi-fi for the system. But
I had a Kenwood system, and I was working for the store, and one day this fellow comes in and he trades in a Mac 1700 receiver, which was pretty old at the time. And I asked the owner of the store, is it okay if I take that home to just see what a Mac sounds like? And they said, sure. And it never came back. I paid for it for the next year by working there part-time.
Well, we've got a question that I mean, it's right there, and we are talking about it. How did you start working at Macintosh? And obviously, you started selling Macintosh when you were 15. Where was that?
So that was at Purdue Radio in West Caldwell, New Jersey.
New Jersey.
And they always told me, now, when you graduate from college, when you're done with electrical engineering, if you come back and work for us, we'll send you up to the factory and you'll meet Gordon Gow. And whenever someone said his name, they always got a deep voice. Gordon ran Macintosh. I always knew Gordon was like the god of Macintosh. And they kept saying, someday maybe I'll meet Gordon Gow. And I went off to college, studied electrical engineering, and it was in my second year of college, a new store opened up in Newton, Massachusetts. And I went in, and the woman who owned the store was desperate for sales help. Her manager had just quit. So she persuaded me to work for her, to try working for her on Saturdays, even though I was in college. What she didn't tell me was she was dating Gordon Gow. So Pam, Gordon, and I ran her store on Saturdays for 6 months until she moved to Binghamton, where Gordon lived, and I managed the store with Jeff Boccaccio, who bought the store from her. So you can't get much closer to Macintosh than that. And I did that for 7 years, and then I had a store for 16 years in San Francisco.
That was House of Stereo?
House of Music.
House of Music, right?
Yep. Macintosh called me up one day and said, "Have you ever been to House of Music?" And I said, "Beautiful store." They said, "It's beautiful, but it's bust. Go out and buy it. The owners want to retire." So $50 down payment, and I had a store. Not $50, but $50 down payment to make it legal.
Yeah, that would be kind of impossible to turn down if you're that much into hi-fi, right? I mean, that would be so cool.
I remember the lawyer saying to me, "You shouldn't buy this store. It hasn't made money for 10 years. I said, "What's the worst thing that'll happen? I'll go bankrupt. I have no money." It makes sense.
Well, you really did a good job, because that turned into quite a powerhouse. And then you went to Macintosh. Well, you went to work for Macintosh when, Ken?
Well, it was probably early 90s. I'm bad at dates. Charlie Randall, who's president of Macintosh now, came to visit me at the store and said his vice president quit, and they really need someone to take over that job. Is that something that would interest me? I said, "Well, no, I have a store right now. I don't want to leave the store. What would that vice president primarily do?" And he said, "Create a world-class training program." And I said, "I have enough time to do that." So for a while, I had my store and I created the sales training program for Macintosh. And then eventually I sold the store, and now I'm full-time with Macintosh. So I've only had one job my whole life of any significance, and that is hooking people up with the right Macintosh equipment. That's
great.
All I've ever done.
It's had that. I know that's had to be a blast for you. What I'd like to do before we bring Sujan on, Nita, I'm not sure if Sujan is joining us. If you could maybe give her a shout, let her know that we'll be ready for her soon. I'd like you to take us just through a brief history of Macintosh, if you don't mind. Maybe hit on some of the highlights, Ken, that you think. You've been doing this so long that you've weeded out what people are like super interested in and what sort of filler. Give us some highlights. I'm going to give you the stage for a minute, and if you don't mind, just let us fill us in, download on us.
Okay. Well, the company started with three people. And there was Mr. Macintosh, who was a very bright engineer, Gordon Gow, or I should say Gordon Gow. You have to go into the low frequency. Gordon, who is also a brilliant engineer, and Maurice, who was he was the bean counter for the company. He knew finances. And they started doing government work. And the problem was that at the time, it was all tube amps. And tube amplifiers at the time, this is 1948, 49, had about 1% distortion in the mid-range. So that means that 1% of what's coming out of the amplifier was sound created by the amplifier. It wasn't part of the original music. Now, the big problem is at high frequencies, the distortion was typically about 10%, and at low frequencies, it was about 15%. And when 15% of the sound is sound created by the amp that the composer didn't want in the music, you can't tell what instrument is playing. And they developed a circuit that was very, very simple. It involved a rather more complicated output transformer, but it brought distortion from 15% down to about 0.15%. They guaranteed their amp would be under 0.5%, but it was typically 0.15 at the frequency extremes. So that is just a drastically better amplifier. And it was designed first for government use, and then audiophiles said, hey, I'd like one of those. And then they really decided they wanted to become a music-oriented hi-fi company. So they called it the unity coupled output circuit. And that is a completely different way of hooking a tube to a transformer in such a way that it cancels its own distortion. And that was really the big start of the company. And They made a few amps that sold pretty well and were very well respected. And then Gordon decided that black and chrome was a really cool look and turned their best amp into the MC30, which was the first black and chrome amp, and sales took off. And that led them right through stereo up until the late 1960s. And in the late 1960s, it became obvious to Macintosh that they had to come out with solid state products because they weren't able to get good tubes. I mean, GE had stopped making good tubes, Sylvania had stopped, RCA had stopped, and Macintosh couldn't get good quality tubes anymore. So they really had no choice. Now you might say, why don't they get tubes from China? Why don't they get tubes from Russia? Well, the Soviet Union, there was no trade with communist countries at that time. So that was out of the question. So they designed their first solid state amp. And they did something that no one else did. Solid state amps don't have to have output transformers, but they built solid state amps with output transformers, which gives you a whole bunch of advantages, which we can't go into great detail on, but basically they give you the same power, whatever the impedance of your speaker is, 4, 8, or 16 ohms. And those were the original Mac amps, the 2105s, the 2505s with the blue meters and the glass panel. And those are the ones that are selling for 2 to 4 times their original price today. The next major thing that happened was PowerGuard. I would have to say PowerGuard was the selling feature in the 80s. Remember, that's a time when digital was first starting out, and people were going out and buying these new digitally mastered vinyl records still. CDs weren't quite here, but they had huge dynamic range. The 1812 Overture on Telarc recordings is a good example. And people would get it home and play it on their system and blow up their speakers, their tweeters, because their amps were clipping. Clipping is when the amp runs out of power and it chops off the tops and bottoms of the waves. And Macintosh developed PowerGuard, which completely eliminates clipping. Doesn't reduce it, it eliminates it. And that was the big selling feature. And then the next big thing they came up with in their history was quad balancing. And quad balancing has been, for the last 20 years, the big feature. It's being put in more and more models. And that is when the amp cancels its own distortion in a transistor amp, kind of similar to what they did in their tube amps, but done in solid state amps. So Macintosh it's still made in the US. The company is very different from other companies. Macintosh doesn't buy chassis. They buy sheet metal and they stamp it and bend it and silk screen the lettering. They don't buy transformers. They wind their own transformers and then put them into metal cases and pour tar into the case. So the transformer has a 360-degree heat sink, so it doesn't get very hot and cold rapidly, which makes the transformers last a lifetime. Macintosh does so much. They do their own surface mount device circuit boards. Most other companies farm that out to someone else. So Macintosh is an economist would say, a very vertically integrated company. They try to do all their own sub work.
You guys build this in the America as well. You're in
Binghamton, New York, and it's all done there. It's amazing. You see sheet metal and raw materials come in, and you see amplifiers leave, as opposed to chassis coming in and circuit boards coming in and having people screw it together.
Yeah, that's one of the factors I have not gotten to. It's been on my list for a while. I'm going to get there at some point after COVID is done.
So, you've got to see the new machines we've bought. It's unbelievable. Robots that put the little resistors on the circuit board and test each part before it's put on the board. So there's 100% QC right from the beginning.
That's really cool. I know this is a bit disjointed. We're going to get back into a little more product in just a little bit, but before we do, I don't want to get away from this without letting you talk a little bit about the company as a whole, because the Mac Group is actually a group, and there's several. There's several. Neetha, if you could pull up the list, could you, just so everyone knows what you guys are all involved with?
Sure.
These are your brands, right?
Yes. Fine Sounds is a logo. I'm not sure if we're still using that or not. So we start out with Macintosh. Sonus Faber is the hot ticket Italian speaker company. You know, they've become kind of one of the best speakers. It's an unusual speaker. It appeals to your hardcore audiophile, but it looks so spectacular. You might want to buy the speakers just as furniture, just because the finish is just so spectacular. So Macintosh and Sonus Faber are all part of the Mac Group. So those are Sonus Faber's Italian-built, handmade loudspeakers that look gorgeous. Samico is a company that imports products from overseas, and they have phono cartridges. Almost everyone's heard of Project Turntables. Mm-hmm. They're the world's biggest turntable company. They're in the Czech Republic. Just incredible company. A very narrow, tall building, and again, raw materials come in the bottom. Turntables come out on the top floor and down the elevator and get shipped out, and they build turntables for a huge number of other companies. Well, Macintosh doesn't own Project, but Macintosh owns Samico, who imports Project.
Yeah, Samico acts as an entire distribution chain. So so the phono cartridge side, which you see the logo on the right, that's a company that we do own. So we manufacture very high-end phono cartridges, starting anything from entry-level moving magnet, going up to really advanced and really high-end moving coil cartridge. And then to expand on what Ken was talking about with Samico, it also acts as a distribution side of things. So Basso Coutinho, which is a fine Italian isolation furniture for your components, and it's a totally bespoke service, or you can get pre-configured furniture, which is really cool. We also recently acquired the North American distribution for Rotel Electronics. And then also Fine Sounds UK, that's also part of our distribution strategy. So you see that logo down there in the corner, and we took over distribution within the United Kingdom using the Fine Sounds branding. And then obviously World of McIntosh, where I'm currently at. So that's part of our branding as well.
Well, I don't think there's a better segue into we're gonna turn this over to Josh for a little bit and let him do a quick tour. But you know what? I gotta find out if Sujin is okay to hop in for. She's having some.
Yeah, she can hop in and then we can do that.
Neetha is fantastic. I see a thumbs up from Sujin. So I am going to bring her on, and this is Sujan Hong, everybody. Hey, Sujan.
Hey, guys.
How you doing?
Not great right now. I'm standing connected to my router. So.
Well, here's what we're going to do.
That'll get us through.
We're going to let Sujan do her thing for just a few minutes, and then as soon as we get back, and guys, don't think that we're limiting ourselves to an hour on this. Ken, myself, and Josh, we were talking before the show, and we're going, guys, there is no way we're getting through this in an hour. So I'm going, let's just have fun with it. So if you could continue to join us, fantastic. If you can't, we're going to be available with this. You'll be able to see this once we finish as well. So Ken, we'll see you in just a few minutes, and Josh, we will see you in just a few minutes. And be ready to do the tour as soon as we get back, okay? Yeah. Sujan, how are you?
I'm doing okay.
I don't think it's no secret. This is my favorite spot, at least of our part of the show. Sujan Hong is our music merchandiser, and the only reason we call her the music merchandiser is because you can't have a whole paragraph for your title, but she is like one of the hardest working people that I know. And one of the most fascinating, I'm not saying this because you're here. I say this when you're not here. She's taught me so much about music, and it's so great to have someone like this in charge of what people see on Qobuz that really they're music lovers, they're music aficionados, they're music experts. Sujana, we frequently say she's got an encyclopedic knowledge of music. It always blows me away the things that she comes up with. So Sujana's going to talk to us a little bit about some releases that we're getting in tomorrow, right, Sujan?
Yep.
Yeah. So I'm gonna duck out because you're a whole lot more interesting than this, and you have a good time. Thanks for joining us, Sujan.
My pleasure as always. All right. Hey, everyone. I'm going to start things off like we always do with our album of the week, which is Chris Stapleton's Starting Over. So Chris seemed like an overnight success when he released his debut Traveler in 2015. But, he had been plugging away in Nashville as a songwriter since 2001. This is his fourth album, and it was produced by Dave Cobb and features Benmont Tench and Mike Campbell of the Heartbreakers on guitar and organ, and you can definitely hear a Tom Petty influence throughout. You can also hear Stapleton's wife Morgane contributing harmonies, as she frequently does on his albums. So his outward vibe may be a bit outlaw, but he can also be a total tenderoni, like on Maggie's song, which is probably my favorite song on the album. It's a tribute to his rescue dog Maggie, who died last year. It's a total like heartstrings tugger that sounds like it was taken out of the band playbook. And this is out tomorrow in 24.96. So next up is Gillian Welch, Boots number 2, The Lost Songs Volume 3. So back in July, one of my favorite folk voices, Gillian Welch, dropped the first part of a surprise trilogy called Boots number 2. Tomorrow, the third and final volume is released. And these are demos that were cut back in 2002, and they were nearly lost when a tornado ripped through the roof of Welch and David Rawlings' studio in East Nashville back in March. The two spent, hours in the pouring driving rain rescuing their equipment and their masters. And having been so close to losing these songs, they remastered them and decided to finally release them. So now we have this full set of 48 songs that were remarkably written over just one weekend. This is coming from Acony tomorrow in 24.44.1. Next, we have AC/DC with Power Up. So Power Up is the 17th album from AC/DC. It's their first release since the death of founding member guitarist Malcolm Young nearly 3 years ago. And Angus Young, who's the only original member left, calls the album a tribute to his older brother. Vocalist Brian Johnson is back, having recovered from a hearing loss that forced him to leave the band a few years ago. Power Up was produced by Brendan O'Brien and will be available in 24.96. All right, next up we have Henry Cow. So Henry Cow was, they were this experimental, progressive, avant-garde collective that formed at Cambridge University in 1968 by Fred Frith and Tim Hodgkinson, influenced by Zappa and Soft Machine and later, Captain Beefheart. I'm not even going to attempt to describe their music. You really just need to listen. Their 4 studio albums, Legend, Unrest, In Praise of Learning, and Western Culture, will be available for streaming for the first time ever tomorrow. This is really exciting. And we're going to have it in 24.44.1 on Qobuz. So definitely check that out. I wanted to draw attention to our latest Panorama. So this is a feature on Merge Records, the iconic indie label founded in Chapel Hill, North Carolina in 1989 by Mac McCaughan and Laura Balance of the band Superchunk. So Merge Records is the label where bands like Neutral Milk Hotel and Arcade Fire released their first albums, and it's currently home to newer and veteran bands like Waxahachie, Teenage Fan Club, who just announced a new album for next year, and X-Hex. Writer Annie Zaleski, who actually has a couple of books coming out next year, including one on the B-52s, has put together a guide of 10 essential albums for you to check out from the catalog. You can pair it with our Label Stories playlist for a complete listening experience. So before I get into this, I'm going to pivot to the download store. So we have a Wilco catalog sale starting next week. We'll have 6 of their albums discounted for 2 weeks. If you have not had a chance to listen to the Summer Teeth reissue that came out last week, go do it. There are also several classical collections that are on sale, and also nearly 24 titles from the French-Lebanese trumpeter Ibrahim Malouf, who also released a new album last week. Those are all on sale. And then in other news, today is your last day to enter our Live from Rudy Van Gelder's studio contest. You can win a ticket to see Ron Carter, Joe Lovano, Isaiah Thompson, and Kenny Washington perform a Hank Mobley 90th year tribute, and a 1-year Qobuz Studio Premiere subscription. The deadline to enter is tonight at 11:59 p.m. Eastern. We're going to throw the link up in the chat or somewhere that's easily accessible. So definitely enter for your chance to win. And finally, happy birthday to Neil Young, 75 years old today.
5 years old. Wow, that's a biggie. Sujan, as always, totally fascinating. Thank you so much. We had a question that, really we get these kinds of questions frequently, and I always almost laugh like you've never been to our store. One of the Facebook users, there's no name attached to it, who's waiting for those Qobuz Black Friday specials, LOL. Here's the LOL for you. They're there every single day. If you just go to qobuz.com and go into the store, the Qobuz store, you won't believe the prices anyway. We're usually 15 to 20% lower than most anybody on the net anyway. But then when you start having these crazy specials like Sujan was just talking about, who was the special on this week, Sujan? I'm sorry.
It's Ibrahim Malouf. He is the French-Lebanese trumpeter who released an album last week.
So I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry. And then I was going to say next week we have a Wilco sale coming up too.
That should be pretty big. And I didn't prepare you for this because I didn't realize this question was coming up, but I would have loved to have just shown a couple of the prices that you can get if you're just a standard studio member and also a Sublime member, because really, folks, if you're a downloader, just hop onto Sublime because you'll end up saving so much money on it that it'll end up paying for your subscription anyway. So you'll be able to buy high-res stuff like we showed it to begin with. I don't have a screen pulled up, but it's like Crime of the Century. I think you buy it for like $10 or $10.50 or something like that.
Yeah, no, the prices are pretty incredible. Everything in the store, if you're a member, is discounted. And then if you kind of use the nav bar if you go to all, you'll see a special filter for things that are also on sale. So, it's discount upon discount. Really a great way to add to your collection.
That's fantastic. Well, Sujan, thank you so much for joining us and sharing your time with us. I thank Sujan so profusely because she is probably the busiest person in our company. And I'm not just saying that. You're taking tomorrow off like usual, right?
Yes.
Sujan's busiest day probably is Friday. She does not take Fridays off. Sujan, thank you for everything you do. You are just an absolute wonderful and treasured part of the team. And I just love working with you, as I know we all do.
Thanks, David.
You take care, okay?
Take care.
Bye. All right, we're going to bring back on, isn't she incredible? I love her because Sujan gets me on what I like to call rabbit holes. I'll start in with one thing that Sujan talks to me about because she's always got something new that I've never heard, and it'll lead to something else and something else and something else. It's listen, unless you got a lot of time on your hands or unless you're super committed, don't get Rune. Because if you have Rune and Qobuz together and you get to bed before like 2:30 in the morning, you're just not doing it right. It's such an amazing experience. So again, thank you very much, Sujan. We're going to bring back my boys, Ken and Josh. I think to begin with, we're going to go ahead and bring Josh back on screen, because Josh is going to give us a tour of the World of McIntosh. So, Josh, I guess you can hear me.
Yeah, no, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Hey, buddy. So
Hey.
this is actually when you first walk in. Josh, I'm just gonna kind of go away and let you do this because I want
Yeah.
people to really be able to see this. But tell them a little bit
It's
about
cool.
the house and some of the history of the house, and
Yeah,
it's just
totally.
a totally fascinating thing. So, Josh, we'll see you in a little bit. Ken and I are coming back, and we'll meet you in just a little bit.
All right, cool. So now you guys can see me full screen. So, I mean, it's great that we can do this with Qobuz Live today because, I mean, obviously with everything that's going on in the world right now with COVID, it's made it very difficult for people to travel in general, but also to come to New York. And I mean, I'm sure many of you guys saw that New York was kind of hit the hardest, and now we're doing incredibly well. But that's why I'm really happy that I can be here with you guys today virtually and kind of show you the space a little bit. So it's a 5-story townhouse in the heart of Soho. So that's downtown Manhattan. And it's a really unique building. So it was originally built in the early 1920s, and it was a sub-power station. So it was a Con Edison sub-power station. And then it served its purpose. And then as the infrastructure changed, they actually, so essentially, they decommissioned it and it became warehousing for the city. And then after that, it became an art gallery. And then it became vacant again and up for sale. And then it was privately purchased and it was turned into what you guys are going to essentially see today. So right now we're on the ground level. So this is street level. So behind me is Lafayette Street in New York City, which is a really busy, it's a really busy street typically. And there's amazing shops and restaurants outside. And the doors, to what Dave mentioned earlier, it's very indescript outside. So no one really knows what's behind the doors. So as soon as you walk in, this is what you see. So this is our lobby. And you might see up here on the wall, so these are some of our Sonos Faber Olympica Nova wall speakers. So these can be used in like cinema applications or actually just stereo applications like we do here, which is really cool. It's in a beautiful walnut finish. But you're probably seeing this blue window and you're curious what that is. What that is the interior of an indoor swimming pool. So I'll show you guys that upstairs, and I'm sure you're probably like, why the hell do these guys have an indoor swimming pool? Well, first of all, it came with the house. But second of all, like I said, the guy that originally purchased the building and built it, he was and still is, he was a film director and producer. So he put the pool in so he can actually film underwater, and that's why that window is there. So now we're coming up, this is the second floor of the 5-story space, and now you see the pool. So I mean, the pool, we don't use a ton because obviously it's not the best for sound, obviously, but we do have some speakers here, and we use it more so as an art gallery and a space. So when we were doing events and having more things that are related to music and art, this was a thriving space, and we were changing out the art every 2 to 3 months, and we were hosting gallery events and getting people interested in who we are and what we do in this space and our products, but also connecting artists and musicians together. And that's really important for us. So now when we come here, this is the adjacent room. So this actually gives you a view of the pool. And then this is our beautiful library and conference room, essentially what we use it for. And now you see product kind of throughout the space. There's some Sonos Faber speakers and a Project turntable. And then as we stand around here, really nice little kind of lounge area. Again, so we have our new Sonos Faber Lumina loudspeakers, new Project Debut Evo. That's a carbon fiber tone arm. So really, really awesome updated turntable. One of our most popular turntables. Like I said, guys, this is Lafayette Street out here. So like I said, usually it's very rainy outside and it's wet, unfortunately. But I mean, all the outdoor dining that's right outside of our door, and people have no idea. People have no idea what's behind those doors, which is kind of cool. All right, so we're gonna come through here.
I didn't realize that Ken and I were also live, at least audio wise. So Ken, you can take.
Oh yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah, Ken, take yourself off mute, and you can.
Oh, another little cool story. So, like I said, the director producer that built this home, he was also the producer of Texas Chainsaw, or director of Texas Chainsaw Massacre. So this barbecue sign that you see on the wall, that was actually used in the production of the film. So that's why that's there. That's a cool little story. All right, so now we're coming upstairs. Now this is, I'm walking up to what is our third floor. So you can see these beautiful stairs. We have this exposed brick, cool plumbing. It goes all the way up the entire building. So we come up here now. This is the main room. So this is probably what people see on a lot of photos and things like that of the space. But yeah, this is our main room.
Yeah, unfortunately, it doesn't look nearly as big as it is. I mean,
video and photos don't do it justice.
Huge.
And again, you can see all of our product that we kind of have around the space. So some Sonos Faber Soneto speakers. It's an integrated amplifier from Rotel Amici project. I walk back through, I'll show you guys some more of that. But yeah, this is really what I want to show you guys. So this is kind of our big main reference system for Macintosh here in the space. And it kind of acts as two systems in one, because we do our stereo listening. So anybody who's coming for an amazing stereo demonstration, this is a lot of times where we sit them down. But also, you're probably wondering, why are there so many amplifiers? It's because it's a full Atmos cinema as well. So we have the screen that drops down from the ceiling, it falls down in front of this fireplace, and then we have a full Atmos cinema. So you can see here, I'm gonna pan around. You see the channels on the ceiling. So we have 4 channels on the ceiling. And what's powering?
Like an awful lot of power there, Josh.
Yeah, and sorry if it's a little dark.
It's okay.
It looks good. So those amps are 2,000 watts each.
So yeah, let me zoom in here. So this is the Macintosh 2KW, and that's a 3 chassis amplifier. So you see 3 boxes, and this one actually states power module. This one states output module, and then we have another power module. So this is the only amplifier that actually carries a globe logo. And so each one of those power modules are 1,000 watts, and they're umbilicaled together to be a singular amplifier through the output. And that's what that is. And then those are connected to our outgoing reference speaker, which is this beautiful thing here, which is called the XRT 2.1K. And this is a line array configuration. So you can see here from all the way to the very bottom of the base. Let me get a little closer. So you have all of your tweeters on the right. You have your upper mid-range frequency drivers. They're on the left. And then you also have here on the side, those are your mid-bass drivers. And then if we zoom out a little bit, then we have 6 8-inch long throw carbon fiber woofers. So it can, we got a little bit of juice behind it as well.
So Josh and I have been in this room. I think the very first time we got together, Josh brought me in this room, and we were both pretending like we were the Maxell man. We're just going, okay, no, put on this. And I'm going, no, put on some Stone Temple Pilots. Okay, crank that. And we were having the time of our life in this room. But really, all the systems sound fantastic.
But yeah, you can see that we have art all over the space. That's our team up there. It's our marketing team. Hey, boys. That's Sam. That's David. We're working very hard. And then, like I said, we have more product here. This is a really cool little product. So this is the Macintosh MH252, which is a hybrid integrated amplifier. And we could talk about that in a little more detail a little bit later. But you can see here the tubes actually go through a warm-up stage. So that's why they're illuminated in this kind of amber color. And then once they become operational and they ensure that there's no issues with the tubes, then they light up green and you're good to go. So it's a vacuum tubes in the front. So this is basically your preamplifier stage. And also it has a moving magnet, so it has a phono. And that's also tube as well.
How much power is that, Josh?
This guy here is 100 watts.
100 aside.
100 aside. So that's the project turntable. This is a beautiful carbon fiber. This is the RPM 10 carbon. It's a massive, massive platter.
Beautiful, beautiful stuff. Hey, Josh, turn back around to the main system real quick. Just
All
to
right,
this
panning, panning, panning. There you go.
Because last year, Josh calls me up, and I think it was at the New York Audio Show. You can
It
just
was.
stay right there. It was at the New York Audio Show, and Josh said, "Hey, man, what are you doing tonight?" Well, when Josh Dellinger calls you up and says, "Hey, what are you doing tonight?" you go, "Whatever you whatever you have in mind." So he's going, "Come over. I'm not even going to tell you what's happening." I get over there, and the kids of Stephen Stills, Bill Withers, and James Taylor are there. I think it's Sally and Ben Taylor, Chris Stills,
And
and
Bill Withers' daughter. She
I'm
was
trying to
amazing.
remember her name.
I can't remember. Her name's escaping me right now.
But she had a beautiful voice. All of these
Amazing.
kids, and they're not really that much kids, they're like in their 30s or so, but oh my gosh, they were such talents. And we got to experience these guys with about, maybe 75 or 100 people gathered around.
Yeah, it was still very intimate.
It
Yeah.
was last November, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was.
I think it was in November. And it was fantastic. We had such a great time. They're having, they do events like this. If you're ever
Well, we used
lucky
to.
enough to be invited to something like this, Josh, I still say thank you
Yeah.
again today for.
Oh yeah, man, it was a
experience.
blast. I was glad that you could come and we have that moment. But it was a good time.
Yeah.
So yeah, we have our kitchen here, and many times we host dinners, and we would bring chefs in and prepare dinners for different types of events, things like that. We do a lot of listening events here, obviously, when it's focused around music. So then this is kind of off of the kitchen. This is another little cool lounge area with beautiful window, and we have obviously some more Macintosh pieces here. So we have
That is such a classy look.
Yeah, so these are the Sonos Faber. So these are the Olympica Nova speakers, and this is also in that beautiful walnut finish. I mean, it's like this
Beautiful
finish
speaker.
with
I don't
it's
know
a
if you've
maple.
done-
It's all maple, hand-applied maple inlay. So it's like just really, really stunning stuff.
Beautiful.
Josh,
This is
can you do a
iconic
little
piece.
close up of the grill of the speaker so they can see?
Yeah, so the grill of the speaker, it might not come through. Let me try to get over here.
You can see it.
So yeah, so it's actually an elastic string grill, and if you guys know anything about Sonos Faber, Sonos Faber, it's an Italian loudspeaker company, and everything's made in hand. So we started in 1983, and everything is all handcrafted in Italy. So we have a team of artisans that do amazing woodwork. We also have leather workers. But as part of our heritage has always been paying homage to the fine Italian craftsmen of beautiful instruments. So different violins. So you guys might remember one of the most popular Sonos Faber loudspeakers was named Stradivari. I mean, I think many of you guys, without me telling you, know or have at least heard the name Stradivarius and knows that it was one of the most popular violin manufacturers in the world. So that's and the strings pay tribute to that. And it's totally removable, and it's an aesthetic thing.
Hey, Josh, there's a question on stage that I'd like to
Sure.
answer. John Karowski, and it is a good question, but it really just doesn't apply because there's so many breakup points. He's going lots of hard surfaces. How do you tame that? And I don't find the room hard at all. John, you walk into a lot of areas and you're just going, oh my gosh, things are just bouncing around so much, especially in the mid-range and high end with hard surface areas. But because because of the brickwork and all of the dissimilar surfaces, you get very little sympathetic resonance or standing waves throughout this place. So yeah. I find it just sounds. I haven't.
Yeah, I mean that is in fact correct, and it's a very valid question. Like in this particular room, because there is a concrete floor, we actually implemented one of our room correction pieces, which actually helps to tame some of those things in that regard. And then obviously in this big room, the liveliness of the room actually helps in certain elements where it actually makes it sound like an incredible live experience, especially with those line array speakers. But also, we also have a room correction piece in there. And we do have a lot of furniture in this space, so it does help to absorb some of those things. Now, when I come upstairs, so now I'm coming upstairs to the level where you saw my team and where I was sitting earlier. So you have this beautiful mezzanine area that kind of overlooks the entire space, yeah? So you see that there? So it's a beautiful view. And then spinning around.
We were actually watching some of the music.
This is our office here.
David.
So he's busy doing work. Sam's busy doing work. Say hey, Sam. Hey, guys. What up? All right, so now I'm going to sit around here. So this is going to the 4th floor. Just taking out some amplifiers here because I'll show you what replaced these amplifiers in this room.
Oh, this is a cool room. I really like this. This
is a nice little intimate, very cozy space.
I see 901.
So as you guys can see here, there are some treatments in here. So we have some absorbers, some diffusion, things like that, some side panels. Now, what we have here is some cool stuff. So this more Sonos Faber speakers. So these are the Sonos Faber El Cremonese. So that's the first step into the reference line for Sonos Faber. So these are a 3.5-way loudspeaker. And what we're actually using to power this specific loudspeaker is a relatively new model and very unique and special model. So this is the MC901. So the MC901 basically is a dual, it's a dual mono amplifier, and Ken can kind of jump into this a little bit more, but essentially it's utilizing a vacuum tube section. It's a 300-watt vacuum tube for your mid and high frequency for biamping, and then you have a 600-watt solid state, which I'm showing you right here in the back, and that's going to be to handle your low frequency. So it has that grip, that punch, that dynamic when you need it. And the very, very cool thing about this is it obviously has our iconic blue VU meters. And you can see there 300 watts on the top. That's the tube. 600 watts below. You can see the tubes glowing. Obviously gorgeous. And then we have some components here. We have our D1100, which is our current flagship DAC. We have a CD transport. This is a brand new piece. This is the C22. So it's not a new piece, but it is a new piece because it is the 5th generation of the C22. And that is a tube preamp. Then we have our MT10, which is our big boy turntable.
Josh,
beautiful. Yeah.
My friend Neil Small is on online. He's
cool.
He runs the Rune user group. So if you're a Rune subscriber or use Rune, I got to tell you, folks, this is the best group. He's such a wonderful person, and he's asking a question. It's like, what are you guys using to stream Qobuz?
Right now in this room, and what I'm using in many of our rooms, is because I said, since we are part of the Macintosh group and we have all those brands on our umbrella, that means I get access to all the brands and I get to show all the brands, so I get to play with all the toys. So I'm using a Project streamer, and the cool thing about the streamer, it's called the Project Streambox S2 Ultra.
Oh, I love that piece.
It's a mouthful, but it packs a lot of punch for how small this little guy is. So it acts as a Rune endpoint. So it's basically a RAT server. So it's going to connect directly to the network, and it's going to be seen by your DAC and your Rune server. And so when you're streaming Qobuz, you're feeding any sort of high resolution files that live on an NAS drive or on your network. You can feed it to that no problem, full resolution, and it can basically do everything that you need it to do. But the other cool thing about that particular that streamer is that it will also, it's kind of a Swiss Army knife. It has Bluetooth built in. So it has aptX Bluetooth. So if you just have somebody that comes over and they just want to be able to play something very quickly and easily, no problem. It has AirPlay 2. It has UMP server capabilities. And so, yeah, I mean, that's what I'm using in a lot of the spaces, just so I can do multi-room Rune very, very easily. So it's a really nice plug and play system, and it's a very, very small box. It has a USB input, and then I'm going right out to USB on the DAC right there.
Fantastic.
So, yeah. It's a really great sounding piece, and I think it retails for like $899.
Yeah,
so
it
it's amazing for the money.
Yeah, great stuff. Hey, listen, we're probably going to go ahead and get back to your space, Josh.
All right, cool.
because
Well,
we're gonna
actually, you know what? Before we jump, I'm gonna come right upstairs because I just want you guys to see, because this is like this is so unique for New York.
no problem.
So as we
This
come
is
up
the
here,
outside. Oh yeah, this is a very
yeah. So
cool
this is the 5th floor. This is the top floor. So this is another beautiful space. And oh, look at that, more Macintosh. And
Josh,
so
it
we got
all looks so classy. I know that place doesn't only sound fantastic. You got the way you feel when you're there.
yeah. It takes time to, you know, because you want it to feel comfortable and you want it to feel welcoming
and it does.
and beautiful, you know,
So
because that's all
warm.
part of it. So cool. I'm gonna jump and I'll
Okay,
see you
hold
guys
on.
back.
You're already up there. At least walk
What do you need?
outside. You got to show them the patio. You're
All right, let me
you're
see.
right there.
It's. I'm gonna open it up. It's kind of wet outside, but I'm gonna open it up. And you guys can check it out.
So after
So this is
go ahead.
no. This is the outdoor space. So it's pretty. It might be hard to see, but it is a really beautiful terrace.
You can get an idea though of how beautiful this spot is, Josh, and you guys have just done such a nice job. You go
Thank
ahead
you.
and run back to your computer. I'm going to bring Ken back on
All right,
screen.
I see you guys in a second.
I will see you. Hey, buddy. What
Hello.
a place, huh?
Oh, it's incredible. Yeah, I had the
know.
pleasure of working there for about 3 months.
Oh, really?
Yep, right before they got Josh. And
so were you in Seattle at the time, or were you?
no,
back
I was living in New Jersey at the time.
Oh, so
I
that's
lived
not so
in
bad.
too many places.
Yeah. Well, Seattle's kind of a rough commute. I thought you may have just stayed there for a few days.
No.
That would have to be an incredible place to work in.
Yes.
Josh, I'll talk to Josh. Sometimes it'll be 9 or 10 o'clock at night. We talk from time to time, and I'm going, yeah. So what are you up to? He goes, just at the townhouse. We're just about to fire up a movie and
yeah,
listen to some music or something. I'm going, what a great place to have at your disposal.
That place gets busier and busier when it gets later and later. And I'm usually in bed by 9:30. So I was not the right person to be running the townhouse.
Oh, I think Josh is definitely the right person. He does a great job. And in fact, here he is now. Josh, thank you so much.
I'm back. Yeah, you know, it's fun. And like I said, it's really cool to be able to show this audience, you know, kind of how cool the space is virtually, you know.
It's just
I'm happy it worked out.
I am too. You know, we were talking about this earlier, and Josh and I think before Ken was on with us, we were going, you know, there's so bloody few people who actually get the privilege of seeing this place. Is there any way you think we could get, you know, strong enough Wi-Fi that you could walk around with your phone? So
I was like, let's try it out.
I hope you feel a bit privileged because not a lot of eyes have been on this place as far as just the absolute cool place. But I told you to begin with, this is probably the coolest branding place or branding store in the United States I've ever seen. I don't think anybody's done a job even close to this. You would typically have to go to Europe to see something like this.
Well, there aren't many American manufacturers left.
Well, yeah, and the ones that are fairly iconic, and you know, certainly you guys are part of that. Hey, Josh, I want to bring up some specific product that I'm interested in because I think I'm interested in this a lot. Hey, David.
Yeah.
A lot of people would be. We were talking about the 901 when I heard about the product. Being involved in the pro side of things as well as the consumer side of things, it fascinated me, and I'm going, more companies should be doing this, and it's just a brilliant product. So can you pull up the there it is. It's the
I got it ready to go.
This is the one that we were just looking at, and it is an incredible, it's not just a hybrid amplifier, it's like a hybrid amplifier, right? Ken, tell us a little bit about this. This amplifier is totally amazing. It's actually 2 amplifiers in one, as you guys were talking about.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about how you guys came up with this, and whoever took this picture must have been blasting it while they were doing it, huh?
Yeah. Well, tubes are great for musicality, listenability. I mean, almost everyone loves the idea of a tube amp, especially for the mids and highs because tubes sound so smooth. Now, on the other hand, there aren't any powered subwoofers with tube amps in them. And the reason is solid state is generally agreed upon to be best for deep bass. For deep, loud bass and really punchy sound, you want to have a lot of power. So we came up with this idea of having a monoblock amp, and you could consider this a monoblock, that would be 2 amps on one chassis, a very high power solid state amp. That's the back of it. So that's a 600 watt amplifier with power guard. Power guard is a patented circuit that makes it unclippable. So if you overdrive it, it doesn't distort. So we have 600 watts to run your woofers. Now this only pertains for the most part to bi-wireable speakers that have separate connections on the back for highs and lows. And that's mated to a 300 watt tube amp, and that powers your mid-ranges and your tweeters. Now, if solid state is the best for woofers and tubes are the best for mid-ranges and tweeters, this is a pretty obvious thing. And you might say, why has no one else ever done this? Well, a lot of audiophiles have tried this. What they do is they hear tweeters don't need much power. They only need 30 watts. So they go out and they buy a 30 watt tube amp and they buy a powerful solid state amp and they hook it up to their speaker and they expect it to sound great, and it's a disaster. And the reason why is bi-wireable speakers. This is the most complicated thing I'll try to explain today. Bi-wireable speakers are designed so you don't have to have 2 amplifiers. You can come up to any old amplifier. Even though tweeters don't need as much power as woofers do, bi-wireable speakers intentionally throw away most of the power going into the speakers before it gets to the tweeter. In other words, they pad down the level of the highs and mids to match the woofers. Therefore, on a bi-wireable speaker, you need about the same amount of power for the highs as you do for the lows. So tweeters don't need as much power as woofers, but since the crossover is throwing 75% of the tweeter power away to make it the same volume as the woofer, you need about the same power. Now, tube amps don't really sound terrible when you overdrive them. They're very forgiving. So we did some research and we came up with the 2-to-1 ratio. And that is, if you have 600 watts for the bass, you need 300 watts for the mids and highs if that's going to be on a tube amp. So you need about half the power in a tube amp that you'd buy in a solid state amp. So that was the next concept is, okay, so you can't buy a 30 watt amp for the highs. So how about if someone goes out and buys a 300 watt per channel amp for the highs and 600 watts per channel for the bass? That should work. It's still not going to work. The second problem you run into is those amps will have different sensitivities. So one amp will be louder than the other. You'll get too much highs or lows. Okay, so how about if you buy amps that have the same sensitivity? It's still not going to work. Tube amps have to be connected to 8 or 4 ohm speakers. If you take a tube amp and you play music through it and turn the volume up, and if there's no speaker connected, you ruin the amplifier. The output transformer can melt down. Unlike transistor amps, tube amps don't like to be what's called unloaded. They don't want to see 1,000 ohms. They have to see an 8 ohm speaker. And here's the problem. If you do have a tube amp for the highs and mids and a solid state amp for the lows, and you feed the same signal into both, and the tube amp is connected to your mid-ranges and tweeters, when a bass note comes along, it comes into the tube amp, it comes out of the tube amp, but its tube amp is not connected to your woofers. The amp is now unloaded in the bass, and the amp blows up.
That's what I really like about the design of the 901 and the subsequent amplifiers that followed that.
Right.
They don't really have to produce that. So the tube amplifier, even if you throw it a bottom end signal, if you've got it crossed over, it's only producing what you've got it crossed. So if you throw it a 30 hertz signal, it doesn't even see it. It doesn't even see it. Right. So it makes that part of the amplifier super efficient.
Right. And then the last part of the puzzle, and I came up with this idea, was we were discussing at a meeting, okay, so we're going to build an amp with a tube section and a solid state amp. It's going to have that 2-to-1 ratio of power solved. It's going to have the same sensitivity for both halves solved. It's going to have an electronic crossover. But now, how do we design the crossover? 6 dB per octave, 12, 18 dB. All speakers have different crossovers. So the crossover that's built into this is an amplifier protection crossover that stays away from the speaker's crossover.
Right.
In other words, if your woofers cross over to your mid-ranges at a certain frequency, and you set the controls on this amp for that frequency, your speaker is doing all the crossing over.
Right.
All
Totally.
our circuit is doing is making sure you don't overdrive the tweeter amp with deep bass notes, and you don't waste power on the bass amp with high frequency notes.
I think you said it best to begin with, Ken. I mean, honestly, the way it works is there's really no if you're bi-amping, you're still sending full frequencies to every driver. If you're using an amplifier like this, at least the bass notes, that's all that's coming out of the solid state amplifier.
Right.
And the high end or mid-range and high end, those are the only frequencies being asked of that amplifier. So it makes really, especially the tube section, super efficient in that it doesn't have to do the thing that it works the hardest at anyway, which is the end.
And the fun thing is, when you go to hook these up, I had a dealer call me and he said, okay, I've got it unboxed. I'm going to hook it up. I see all this stuff on the amplifier, all these switches. And I said, 99% of the cases, there's nothing to do. You hook up one cable to the input, bi-wire speaker cables going to the two outputs, and just all you have to do is set the frequency to what it says on the back of the speaker. That's it. It requires no great knowledge. So it's the amp of everyone's dreams, but it's never existed. And the reason is we're the only, to my knowledge, only high-end audio company, at least significantly large, that's equally known for solid state and tube amps.
That's true.
Everyone else is either known for one and maybe dabbled in the other side, and people didn't like it and they went back and said, no, we're going to be just tubes or just solid state. Macintosh is known for both. So we're the only company that really could build this, and people they're not skeptical. And this is the best sounding amp we've ever made. It's not the loudest. The 2000 watt amp is louder, but this is the best sounding amp we've ever made.
I cannot wait to hear this. Now, Ken, you guys have got didn't you make another amplifier like this that's smaller?
Well, not exactly. So what we make is,
it's like they're integrated, right?
Right. So here's the Macintosh philosophy. It doesn't make too much difference if you have tubes in the preamp or the amp, as long as they're somewhere in the signal path. Mm-hmm. Once you've got a tube section in the signal path, what I call tubeliciousness is there. Now, what we don't want to have to do is interview every customer and say, how loud do you like to play your music? And So this solves the problem. This is ironically our entry-level piece. And it's the day this came out, it became a bestseller. It is a tube preamp, a full-on high-performance Macintosh tube preamp with a tube phono section. And it's married to a solid-state power amp in the same chassis. So you've got plenty of power. It's 100 a channel into 8 ohms, but today almost every speaker is 4 ohms. I mean, even if they say they're 8 ohms, when you look at the technical sheet, most speakers today are 4 ohms in the base.
What they say typically on specs are nominal. Whenever you see nominal, you know that's at 1 point. And
Right.
It's absolutely right. You'll see an 8 ohm speaker that's a nominal 8 ohms, but you really always want to try to look for companies that at least the minimum as well.
That famous Maker British speaker, you know, all their speakers are rated for 8 ohms, but in the specs, they usually say 3.2, 3.6 minimum. So I like to quote the 4 ohm power because it's more realistic. So that amp that Josh was showing is 160 a channel into 4 ohms. So it's got reasonable power, a tube preamp, a headphone amp, and a phono section all built into one at a very reasonable price. Josh, can you show the 352 next?
Sure.
So the 252 was so popular, we decided to give it a big brother.
Yeah, that's really pretty.
This is the best value amp we make. I'll just state that right there. It is rated for twice the power, 200 a channel, 320 into 4 ohms. But for some reason, and I don't know why we did it, it's the most underrated amp we make in power. I think it's a British magazine tested it, and into 4 ohms, their sample did 500 some odd watts per channel, continuous. The thing is a beast. So this is, again, tube preamp, solid state amp, meters, 5-band equalizer, phono section, all together in one piece. There's no DAC in this. Most of our integrated amps have DACs built in, but the 252 and 352 look retro. We want them to be current for the next 20 years. We didn't put DACs in them. You can always get a DAC on its own.
Yeah. No. What a beautiful piece.
I love it. The 352 has just the right features for a huge number of our clients. So you get that tubeliciousness with solid state. Now this is the does everything amp, the MA12000. So I won't go through all the features, but it's got very high power. It's ultra conservatively rated at 300 a channel. So most people can just not worry about power. It's got a tube preamp stage. It's got 8-band EQ, which, I mean, it's not like you're going to play with the equalizer all the time. That's for old recordings or problem rooms that have a boom at a certain frequency. You can touch it up. Vinyl lovers love this. It's got moving magnet and moving coil inputs, but here's the best part. You've heard of loading your cartridge with the right impedance. With this, you can adjust the phono section by remote control from your chair while music is playing for the best sound. You can change the loading. Now, we also gave it, and Josh will zoom in on it right there, a DAC. So it's got 2 coax, 2 optical, a USB, and an HDMI digital input. So you've got a lot of digital inputs. Now, one thing I can tell you for sure is 10 years from now, that DA2 DAC section is going to be archaic. DACs keep improving. So that is on a plug-in circuit board. You loosen 2 screws, you slide it out, and when technology improves, you slide a new DAC in. We've already progressed from the DA1 to the DA2 module, and Someday, I'm sure there'll be a DA3 and 4 as technology improves. So we wanted this to not be something that you'd outgrow tomorrow.
I don't want to get too techy on this, Ken, but what kind? Do you know the DAC chipset that you guys are using on these?
So I don't know the ESS. I think maybe the brand. What we're doing though is something no one else does. It's a quad balanced DAC.
Yeah.
So I should take a minute and explain. You usually have two DACs, a left channel DAC and a right channel DAC. And we don't do that. We never do that. We always do two left channel DACs and two right channel DACs. And the reason we do that is it's called a balance thing. It's like balanced cables where we go from digital to analog music, and then we do it again with music that's been flipped upside down. And then we take the two, we add them, we do another flip, and it's like noise canceling headphones. It cancels noise, distortion, and little sonic things that we don't even know how to measure. So that's using two DACs per channel. But we don't do that in this either. We use 4 DACs per channel because we double up on the DACs, because when you do that, errors go down, signal goes up, noise goes down. So it's got 8 32-bit DACs in it to do 2 channels. It's typical Macintosh. We go overboard just so we can end all the arguments. 32 bits, 8 channels, it's the best we can do.
Yeah, wow, this is really fascinating. Yeah, I wish we had, a little more time. We could go over even more product, but we're pretty much getting. We've been going, believe it or not,
a little for an hour and a half. Yeah, I don't know if this qualifies as your longest stream, but I'm willing.
It does.
I'm willing to. Okay, good. So we broke the record. That's good.
Yeah, but that's okay because there's not really any limit.
Well, it's like a twofer though, because it was about Macintosh's brand and then obviously where I'm sitting. So it's cool.
Hey, listen, that we knew that this was, in fact, before we ever started this thing, we were talking about it a little while ago, and we were going, you do realize we're not getting out of this thing in an hour.
Oh,
I knew from the beginning.
Not when I'm talking.
No, it was fascinating. Ken, thank you so much for the history.
Sure.
Josh, I want to know before we get out of here, what's 2021 plans? Do you guys have any ideas? Do you have any, do you know when you guys start being free or?
Well, it's really a wait and see approach. We're very fortunate to have this amazing space and that we have a very small team, and we're very careful. And so we get to work every day with our best friends essentially, and we get to be in a beautiful environment and do what we love. And that's really cool, and that's important. But in terms of when things can return to normal, I don't know exactly, but I'm hopeful. And I look forward to that day when we can start having the types of amazing events that you spoke about earlier that are just so unique. And it's kind of like it's these really cool New York moments, right? That just kind of happen. And that's a lot of what happens in the space is just this unique organic relationships and people that we meet that have the common love of music and art. And it could be architecture, it could be fashion, it could be all these things, but there's a commonality with all of us, and that's really just deep rooted passion, and that's how that event happened. I met somebody through they were coming here for something completely different, and they say, hey, I'm working on this amazing documentary about all the children of these amazing musicians, James Taylor, Bill Withers, and what their kids are currently doing. And I was like, that's rad. And she's like, I'll invite you. And I was like, that's amazing. And then next thing I know, she's like, hey, our venue actually fell through. I know this is a long shot, but is there any possibility that we could do it at your space? And I was like, why don't you come over tomorrow and let's talk? And then that's how it happened.
I can't remember the because you guys before I got there had previewed the movie, right? Do you remember what the movie is called, Josh?
The documentary? No, no, but I can get it, and maybe we can share it thereafter. I don't remember off the top of my head, but
There's a
I know I
lot of
have it.
there was a lot of questions, everyone, that we didn't get to. But Josh, myself, Ken, we're going to go back and we're going to be sure to answer everyone's questions.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for
Now this is fun.
asking the questions. Thank you guys for being here. I knew
Yeah.
it was going to be a blast.
We'll do it again.
Good. Let's do. I think there's some exciting stuff coming up with
Yeah,
that.
Dave, and I already said before, we have a lot of brands.
Right.
We have a lot of brands, so I mean, this
I know.
could be something that we can do with some of our other brands as well.
Yeah, we just added Rotel and Mishi. That's going to keep us busy.
How crazy is that? You know, Josh, the next guy I want to have on is a very good friend of mine, and I think it would be fun for both of you guys to be on as well. Will Klein
Oh, sure.
from
Yeah.
Sonus,
And we have so many amazing things that are happening with Sonus Faber as well.
Yeah.
You know, so we've just announced some new product. We have some really cool stuff on the horizon, and then we also announced our automotive partnership with Maserati. So there's so much cool stuff to talk about.
I'm very much looking forward to it. I'm definitely going to be answering this one from John Kurowski. Thanks. I'm curious why Mac used DTS Play-Fi over anything else or develop their own. You know,
We
guys,
can't develop our own because that's so software driven.
that is such a hard thing to do.
Yeah, we have to leave that for software companies. And although Play-Fi had a little bit of rough idling at the beginning, it's doing great now. So we have a little MB50 streamer that if you hardwire it to your network, works stupendously well.
Ken, I tell everyone if you're going to do high resolution, I don't care what kind of server you've got.
Yeah.
What kind of
Right.
just hardwire it. It's
You got to do
not
it.
adaptive. It's something that's a constant. So if there's any stress on your network, you're going to get a skip. So it's
Right.
just like everything else. One of the reasons I really like huge amplifiers, and I've got a bunch of them. I've got 500 watts per channel on my top end of my system and 400 watts on the bottom end, pushing 8 woofers. And I love huge power because not that I use it all, but I've got all this headroom. So anything that I do use,
Yep.
such in the sweet spot of that amplifier, your internet is the exact same way. If you're
Right.
on the edges of your internet and you're basically clipping the signal off, you're gonna get cut out. So wire it, and if you have to pay
Right.
somebody to run a connection, I promise you it will be well worth the dollars, because the same thing, you want to have plenty of headroom in your Wi-Fi. You never want to be able to get to the top and the bottom.
Right.
So that
I agree. I've been doing this for 40 some odd years. No one has ever come back to me and said, Ken, you sold me too big an amplifier.
Yeah.
I want to answer one question. I'll take 30 seconds to do it. It's such a good question. When are we going to come out with a DA3 or DA4 module? And the answer is we just came out with the DA2. We're not even working on a bigger one. So you're safe for quite a while.
Yeah. So look, this is just a built-in anti-obsolete device.
Yeah,
right?
it's a measure. Yeah, it's a measure for the obsolescence.
Right. So when there are DAC improvements out there, you guys reserve the right to come out with a 3 or a 4.
Yeah.
That's
but it's not even being designed yet.
Right.
Yeah, and this DAC is so fully fledged that, again, with the HDMI ARC return channel, so you can essentially connect this to your television directly, and even if it's mixed in a Dolby 5.1 or whatever sort of multi-channel it's mixed in, it will down mix automatically and perfectly and sync everything together into PCM 2 channel. And in that same regard, it can do DSD. It can render just about any other bit rate and sample rate, and then it's also Roon tested, which is really important to us as well. So we make sure that anybody who's using Roon, I mean, they can throw whatever they want to stream, whatever they want.
Yeah, I don't know about. I was going to say I don't know about you, but I do know about you because we've had this discussion many times. Josh and I are both head over heels in love with Rune. It's just to me, it makes the listening experience
And the
worthy of
discovery
going.
too. The discovery is
Well,
everything.
that's just it. It's, Josh, it's so easy to deal with a few thousand albums on a standard management system like, I mean, even an iTunes or something like that. But when you start dealing with literally millions and millions, it's nearly impossible. And just Rune makes that so possible, along with
Yeah.
hooking up to. I've got probably 7 or 8 systems in the house, and the thing I like
First
about
world problems.
it just it controls everything. If I go to one
Yeah.
room, I can go and I still on the same GUI, and the user experience is really cool. So
Yeah.
that's what I like about the World of Macintosh. When we went there, it was all about what works best in the World of Macintosh, not if it's our brand or not. Not that it's a Macintosh brand, just like you were telling me that you guys use a lot of the project servers, which I
Yeah.
totally get because it is a Rune endpoint and they do work so well and they really sound fantastic as well. So
They do.
kudos to you guys and thank you for everything that you do for our industry. Thank you for being on Qobuz Live on Thursdays, and we definitely Ken, Josh. I do want to come back with some of the other brands, but when I know
We
Macintosh has
will.
got some really cool stuff coming up in 2021.
Oh yeah.
Do you guys mind if we sort of pre-schedule or we pencil in another show in 2021 at some point?
That would be great.
Yeah,
Great.
we could definitely do that.
All right. Well, listen, everyone, join us on Streaming Music Matters or Qobuz, any of our social. Please be sure to visit Macintosh on their website. Neitha usually has that pulled up. I guess, is it just Macintosh.com or Macintosh Audio? What is it?
Macintoshlabs.com.
Yeah.
Macintosh Labs. That's, of course, I was just
Or simply, nobody actually types that anymore. They just go to Google and they type Macintosh, and then it's the first thing that pops up.
you were cutting out like crazy. Say that one more time.
I was just saying that nobody types in full URLs anymore. So most people just go to Google. If you type Macintosh, you will definitely find us.
There you go. That's okay. Great. It's great to have a millennial in the on the panel.
Nobody types URLs.
All right, guys. Listen, thanks a lot for coming in, and
Thank you.
Have a great rest of your evening.
You too.
Good
Bye
seeing
bye.
you.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
everyone.